My name is Hodgie Holgersen. I'm the president of Tidewater Beekeepers Association, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit of equipment. You've already had some equipment, you've already had some woodenware, but I'm going to talk to you about some of that equipment as it's relative and pertains to what we're going to do. And what we're going to do is a hive inspection. For the most part, it's a mock hive inspection, showing you the three different sizes of woodenware. The most important part of that information for getting started is what size. Okay, you need to decide that before we get to the woodenware workshop, if that happens or if it doesn't happen. We may or may not get to that. We might have to do that later. That's all dependent on COVID and the numbers and the governor and everything else. So at the end of the day, you need to figure out, are you going to go with 10 frame, 8 frame, 5 frame nuke? Nuke is short for nucleus hive. That's a 5 frame starter hive. I think they're very important. Some people use them extensively, some people don't. They're not designed to produce honey, but they certainly can produce honey. Okay, so you've got deep boxes, you've got medium boxes. There's a medium and a deep, just to show you the difference. Okay, and then there's also shallow. All right, shallow is the only time I use shallow boxes is for doing cut comb honey. Have a bad back? Is there a strength issue? And that might bring you to top bar hives. Long hives, which is basically a Langstroth hive, but it goes horizontally. Okay. Honeybees have been, nature intended them to be in a hollow tree somewhere, and they've been doing that for 65 million years. Okay. Those cavities, because honeybees are cavity dwellers, those are vertical. They've been moving north and south for millions of years. Okay. However, in a house, typically, you have a cavity, perfect for bees. If they can get access to it, they're going to take advantage of it. But then they build everything horizontally, and they build it just as perfectly as we do. They don't need us to teach them how to build comb. They do it perfectly. Okay, so keep in mind that a 10 frame deep box of honey could weigh 100 pounds. So you don't want to buy something that you can't, that you find out that you're not going to use, or you're going to have to give to somebody else or whatever. So think about this. So in my yard, and you will see that later, you will see a deep box and a medium box like this stacked on top of each other, and that's the brood chamber. Okay, because sometimes you need this and all you have is this, so you use what you've got and you'll fix it later, and later never happens. Let me tell you, beekeeping, you can get so involved and bigger than you intended to, even in one season, to where later never comes. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to do a mock hive inspection. Later we're going to actually get into the bees and show you the queen and the brood and what you should be seeing. This is a winter environment. We have warm enough days in our winters where occasionally you can get into a hive if you would like. So keep in mind that what you're going to see on this class today in the hive with the live bees, it's going to be different in the spring and the summer. That queen is laying 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day. It takes 21 days for a worker bee to go from an egg to a larva to a pupa and emerge a fully developed bee. You do the math. Okay, 1,500 to 2,000 a day. You get into your hives 1 week, and you're like, oh wow, cool. They're manageable. There's not too many bees. You get into them a couple weeks later, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Okay. A lot of people think that new beekeepers shouldn't even get bees until after the main nectar flow, which is about the 1st of June. Okay, I do kind of agree with that, because after the main nectar flow, things kind of slow down and it's not so overwhelming. Okay, you're dealing with maybe 40 to 80,000 bees. Okay, and you're trying to look down into the cell and look for eggs and that kind of stuff, and when you hold that frame up and they cascade across the face of that frame like slow molasses, that could be intimidating. But it's not impossible. So if you want to start as early as you can, hey, whatever. I would just recommend that you invest in bee yard sweat equity. That's Frank Walker's term that he got from doing Habitat for Humanity. He's the president of Norfolk Beekeepers Association, and he says, put in your bee yard sweat equity before you get bees. Okay, go work in my hives, go work in her hives, go to that person, see how they do it, and then you figure out what works for you. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you a couple different methods. Every piece of equipment has an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't tell you buy this, don't buy that, with 3 exceptions. I'm going to give you the advantages and disadvantages, and then you're going to have to decide what's an advantage to you, because it might not be an advantage to the next guy. Okay, and you base that on your management strategy or philosophy. Are you chemical free? Are you all natural? All these different nuances that come with beekeeping, and you'll hear this often. You can ask a beekeeper, 10 beekeepers, the same question and get 11 different answers, and that's true. And they might all be right answers. What we want to prevent you from doing is making mistakes, okay? Because you make mistakes when they can be prevented. We could possibly keep you from killing thousands of live, organic critters, okay? If I gave you a box of bees, would you know how to take care of them? 40,000 stinging insects that are willing to defend themselves and their queen and their home. So, you need to protect yourself. First of all, when you go out to do a hive inspection, you don't want to be dressed like me. Okay? Dark, brown, black clothes. What color are the bee predators? The bear and the badger. Okay? You don't want to look like a bear and a badger. Bees see things differently than we do. All right? They don't see clearly. They see on the other end of the light spectrum, toward the ultraviolet end of the light spectrum. All right? When they see your face, you look like a bear. You got 2 dark spots here and a dark spot here, and you don't look a whole lot different than a bear. So don't dress like one, okay? Wear light clothes, white or pastel colors, lighter. They're cooler. Most beekeeping is done when it's hot, okay? If I'm out there in 85-degree weather or 90-degree weather dressed like this, I'm not going to be comfortable, okay? So when you start to sweat, your clothes stick to you. You don't want your clothes sticking to you. You want them to be loose. You want to wear something baggy. Long sleeve baggy shirt, long sleeve baggy pants, no yoga pants, okay? They won't give you any protection. Usually if you wear long sleeve baggy shirt and pants, a veil is all you need, okay? But if you wear that, wear something cool and light colored. You don't want to go run 3 miles, or go on a 40-mile bike ride and come home, and while you're still hot and sweaty, go out and I'm going to get into my bees, because you're emitting a scent that they don't like, and your clothes are sticking to you. Bees can get through a bee suit, a full bee suit, if they're mad enough. if they want to enough, they can get through that. All you might need is something like this. This comes from the Flow Hive. You guys can ask me about that if you want more information on the Flow Hive. I always carry a veil, even though I don't wear a suit, and I don't tolerate aggressive bees because I don't want to wear a suit. All right. I do encourage you to. I want you to be comfortable. If you're anxious, if you're nervous, you emit a scent. It's from adrenaline. The bees detect that and it riles them up. Next thing you know, everybody's getting stung because one person is nervous. Okay? Protect yourself. Okay? You got a veil on and you know that, hey, they're not going to fly up my nose. You're going to be a lot more relaxed. Okay? And then you can go from there as your experience increases. But bee stings are actually good for you. That's what I tell myself every time I get stung, and I've been stung thousands of times. And take the pain, Hodge. It's good for you, okay? And it is. It's been known to cure arthritis. It's good for gout, good for multiple sclerosis, and they're researching how to treat cancer with it right now. It could be a cure-all for cancer, honeybee venom, okay? So, you want to go cheap? Get just a veil, all right? It could be a safari hat and a square veil like this. It could be a folding veil, really inexpensive, okay? You could get a jacket, just a jacket and a veil. You could get a full suit, top to bottom, okay? You can put, Velcro around the wrists and the ankles and stuff. You can get this, triple layer ventilated suit that is supposed to be cooler. It's only, and you can wear shorts underneath it, and it's only cooler if the wind's blowing. Okay. Otherwise, this can be hotter than the cotton ones. All right. But this is out there. You can spend $250 for a bee suit, or you can spend a whole lot less. Okay. So that's a decision that you have to make. I will encourage you not to waste money on big, heavy leather gloves, because what is leather? Leather is animal fiber. They can sting, those gloves. So that alarm pheromone gets into that leather, it doesn't wash off, and it's animal fiber. You don't want to appear or smell like them to think that you're a predator, an animal, okay? So big heavy gloves, you lose your manual dexterity and your sensitivity. The reason I don't have to wear a suit is the proper use of smoke, how you handle them. If the bees don't think you're going to hurt them, if they don't feel that you're a threat, they have no reason to sting you. They have a stinger, and that stinger is used strictly for defense. Okay? So, if they don't think that you're a threat to them and you move slow and methodically, and you use the proper smoker in the proper way, that incidentally is your most important tool as a beekeeper. But if you do all those things right, and you're sensitive to what you're doing, squishing a bee, getting stung every now and then comes with the territory. It's going to happen, okay? If you can minimize those two evolutions, you're going to have a lot gentler colony. Because every time you squish a bee, every time one stings you, it releases alarm pheromone that riles all her sisters up, okay? If you could stop that from happening, if you can minimize that, then you're going to have a lot gentler hive. So if you're going to wear gloves, get some dishwashing gloves or nitrile or whatever. They can sting through these. They don't normally want to sting your hands. If they're going to come after you, they go here, okay? Because that's where they're the most effective. I've had them land on my hands because I'm moving too fast, but that's just, they're warning me. I've had like 5 or 6 of them land on me, like, watch it, buddy, you're moving too fast. alarm pheromone washes out of this, or you can throw them away and get another pair. All right. Also, the most important part of these, you can be sensitive. Women love you to be sensitive, especially if you're guys. Who's in here? Mostly women, okay? They want you to be sensitive. Wear gloves that are more sensitive, okay? Because my style of doing a hive inspection is feeling for the bees. And when you put a frame next to another frame, right at the end bars where the wood meets, you can feel if there's a bee in between there, and you can bump her, okay? Honeybees are social insects. You and I are social mammals. We do the same things that they do, and I say we do what they do because they've been doing it for millions of years and we haven't, okay? If you're in a crowded subway or a train station, someone bumps into you, it's like, oh, excuse me, pardon me, okay? Bees do the same thing, all right? You can bump her and she'll move, all right? The worst sound you can hear when you're doing a hive inspection is the sound of a crunch. Then it's too late. You've already done the damage. But you can bump them, get them to move, and then when you hear those two boards bumping together, you know there's no bees in there, and then you're not squishing any bees, okay? You can't do that with big old heavy mitts on, okay? You're not working a rototiller where you're worrying about getting blisters. You're worrying about bee stings, and those are minimal if you're doing what you're supposed to, okay? So wear your gloves, hopefully sensitive, as soon as you can, as soon as you get used to handling bees and you're comfortable with them creepy crawly things all over you, lose the gloves. Lose the gloves completely. Sometimes these are a pain in the neck when you go to set the frame down and it pinches the end of your glove, and then you go to pull away and it goes like that. If you go like that, the bees are going to let you know they don't like that, okay? So listen to them. They're going to tell you when they're not upset. You drop a frame, they're going to let you know. You'll probably never drop that frame again, okay? If you're suited up like a knight in shining armor, totally impervious to their wrath, then you develop bad habits. You become a bad beekeeper, all right? If you leave a little part of you vulnerable, like your hands, and you make a mistake, they let you know about it, you're not making that mistake again, because what did I say? Pain is a great motivator, okay? So keep that in mind. Do what you have to become a better beekeeper. Have an arc to your learning curve. All right, so I always carry 2 buckets, one for wax, one for propolis. Propolis is a bee glue. Bees collect plant resins from sap from tree buds and plant resins, and they mix live enzymes from it, from the bee's gut with that. That's what they use to seal up all the cracks and crevices in their hive. This has a market value, okay? This is like $30 a pound, all right? They use that for tinctures and throat spray and eczema and psoriasis and all kinds of things. It has a lot of good qualities in it, all right? And you're always going to be cutting out burr comb and brace comb. You don't want to take this stuff out of your hive, throw it on the ground. Otherwise you're going to attract critters that you are not desirable, all right? So have a bucket of each. If you don't want it, give it to me, all right? There's always somebody that's going to want to use beeswax. I have people come and buy beeswax from me for everything imaginable, from black powder shooting to we're trying to figure out the right formula to dip our boxes in so we don't have to paint them. We won't ever have to paint them again. That's the idea. So don't throw your wax away, okay? I always have a couple of these just for that. This is a toolbox, okay? It's got everything you want on it. It's a place where you can put your smoker right here, your high frame grip, your everything you want. Also, it's a super. I mean, it's a nuke. It's a 5-frame nuke. You might be somewhere and you need to transport bees. You might pull your frame out of here and your queen's on it. It's like this could be your quiet box. You could put that frame right over in here, Now you know where your queen is. You're not going to accidentally squish her, okay? She's nice and safe. Put her in there. You could even sit on it. Put it on the ground, sit on it like a stool, okay? You can make your own. You can buy one already made like this, or you can make your own. This is a 5-frame deep nuke. You could screw the bottom to it, do everything that this one had done to it. You can improve it. You can make it better, okay? So this makes a good quiet box. It also helps you keep organized with all your stuff, okay? And you do have a few things called stuff, all right? You need a bee brush. You're not going to use it very often, but when you need it, there's nothing else that works as good as this. Some people will pick up some stuff and like that because they're all natural. All right, whatever, that'll work. But you need something to brush with. I put that in my back pocket. I might go all day and never even pull it out. But the time that I do need it, nothing replaces it better. I'm a retired Navy salvage diver. When I was in the Navy, living from payday to payday, I used a Navy foxtail. Hey, this will be perfect. I won't have to buy this. And then I'm brushing bees. And I'm like, why are they so mad at my brush? Well, that's because the bristles were horsehair. What did I say about animal fiber? You're going to take animal fiber and bump them out of the way? No, they'll let you know, okay? They don't even like synthetic fiber, but they don't mind that near as much as horsehair foxtail brushes. So I learned the hard way. You need a hive tool. There's a bunch of different hive tools. Go to my house and see the one I use. Go to her house, go to his house, see what they use. Try them all before you buy one. You might like this one a lot better than that one. And the last thing you want is a half a dozen. So you need a hive tool, bee brush, smoker, most important tool, all right? Don't skimp. When you buy a smoker, don't skimp. The difference between the most expensive smoker, the best smoker money can buy is this data, in my opinion, okay? It's a 10-inch, you can get 7 inches, 10-inch ones. Get one with a cage on it. This one, the cage goes down underneath, okay? We can take the camera over there and show you my big city trash can with a round circle melted in it, okay? There's been a lot of brush fires and forest fires caused by beekeepers, guaranteed, okay? Get a cage, all right? From the most expensive smoker, this one, $45, to the cheapest smoker is only about $15, $20 different. This is stainless steel. It'll last you your lifetime, okay? Don't skimp. The last thing you want to be doing, this one even has a finger guard, okay? In case, I've never had that get too hot and make it uncomfortable, but that's there, okay? The last thing you want to do is, the moment you realize you need a smoker, and if it's out, that's not the time to be trying to light your smoker when your bees are lighting you up, okay? So this is something that you need to practice. Buy a smoker before you're ever getting bees. Get in your driveway, practice lighting it. One time it's easy. Oh, wow, that's nothing. Next time it's like, what in the world is a problem, okay? So you might use it initially right at first, never use it the rest of the time you're in your hive. That's okay too. But you better reach over there and puff it every now and then. Make sure it's still lit, okay? Because this is your most important tool, all right? So think about that. Practice using the different people that you go to their house. You know, when you put in your bee yard sweat equity, practice using theirs. See what you like. The main thing, I mean, I bought one that's, hey, it sounded good. You can replace this bellows part without replacing the whole thing. And hey, it doesn't puff smoke. It just like, it ain't worth it. I've got enough smokers that I could start a smoker museum, okay? Don't be that guy, all right? I don't have a problem because all the money I spend on bees is brought to me from the bees, okay? So keep that in mind. Put some thought into it and get the right smoker, get a good smoker, all right? This is a frame grip. You don't have to have that. Some of this stuff you don't have to have, some of it you do. I'm going to show you how to use a frame grip and do it with your fingers, but you may or may not like this. And if you come to my yard or the bee yard, the TBA bee yard, and you're listening to me, I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. And then you decide what works best for you, okay? Now, I said I don't tell you buy this, don't buy that, use this, don't use that. I don't do that with 3 exceptions. Only 3 exceptions, okay? And we'll get to that later. But most of the time, I'm going to give you the advantages and disadvantages to everything, and then you need to decide what works for you, okay? I give a feeder lecture that lasts an hour long, okay? There's about 15 different feeders out there. Everyone has an advantage and a disadvantage, and you need to figure that out for yourself, okay? So, if we were going to do, this is another piece of equipment that you may or may not want. It's not essential. It's called a frame perch, okay? And it's real handy, not necessary. Some people just put the frames on the ground. I don't like to do that. I use this. I've got the jig to make these myself. I just don't have the time to make them. But when I do start making them, then I'm going to make them available to other people. So let's get into a hive inspection, and then we will talk a little bit more about more equipment, but mostly from this point on, we're going to talk about how to do a hive inspection. After our woodenware workshop sometime in March, because usually January, February is too cold to get into your bees, in March we usually do a hive inspection. That is also dependent on COVID. So that's up in the air. We might have to do it later. We might have to break the class up into smaller groups, whatever. But you will learn more during that day. And some people, they'll be handling bees for the first time. You'll learn more that day than all the rest of the time you've spent learning about bees, including today, okay? But what we're doing right now, we're going to do there. I just want you to have an idea of what we're going to be doing so it's not all brand new to you when we get out in the bee yard. Okay, folks, this year, since we're doing a virtual pre-recorded situation versus classroom, we get a little extra because we can't bring a beehive full of bees into the classroom. But since we're doing it this way, so consider yourself lucky because you're going to get a sneak preview of what it's all about, what beekeeping is all about. It's a warm enough day to where we can get in to our hives and show you that sneak preview before the shadows get too long and the temperature plummets. Earlier it was about 57 degrees. I like it to be into the 60s, but I will get into a hive in the wintertime if it's 55 or above, if there's a need. We won't be in these very long. We just want to give you the opportunity to actually see what you're going to be seeing once we're done with the classroom and you're out in the bee yard, and that's where you do most of your learning, okay? So whether you have 1 hive or 100 hives, you're going to have to manage them, because unless your bees are up in a tree 12 to 25 feet off the ground, that's where nature intended them to be. Unless they're up there, we take them from 25 feet up in a tree where they have been for 65 million years, and we put them 2 feet off the ground. So since we're taking them out of their environment, you need to know how to manage them, whether you have 1 hive or 100 hives, okay? So I'm going to go through it a little bit and we're going to see more in detail without the live bees. But right now, let's take advantage of the weather that we have and see what we're going to be seeing later on. So normally, and there's different size boxes, but a nuke sometimes is the easiest to locate because there's less frames. So normally, no matter what size hive it is, you're going to take the outer cover off. Normally you just put it on the ground behind you, upside down. All right, this is a saddle rack. You can do anything you want. You can set it on a stack of empty super boxes or whatever. But your most important tool, like's been mentioned before, is your smoker. As a beekeeper, this is your most important tool, okay? You want to practice lighting it. You want to make sure you have one that will stay lit. Practice lighting it, practice keeping it lit. One time it's like, oh, that's easy. Next time, and I'm telling you, about the time you need your smoker is when you're going to find it went out. And when you need your smoker because your bees are like a little aggravated with you, that's not the time to be lighting your smoker. So a bigger smoker is easier to keep lit, okay? But if you've only got a couple hives, you know, a 7-inch is fine. 10-inch is just better, okay? You want dense, cool smoke. Heat riles them up. Heat will make your bees mad. Smoke calms them down. And it needs to be dense, cool, white smoke, okay? You can produce a 3-inch tongue of flame out of this thing if you use it wrong, and you can incinerate bees right out of the air, burn their wings right off. That happens. That can happen. Be aware of it. So when you're in a half panic mode and you're pumping this like crazy and you're fanning the flames, you're not getting smoke, you're getting flame. So this is a whole lecture in itself. Smoker. Make sure you know how to use it. Make sure you have a good one, and then it should never let you down. You might hardly ever use it while you do a hive inspection, but when you need it, and you don't want to have issues with it. If it starts smoking too much, lay it on its side, because this is a chimney. Air comes in the bottom and out the top. You lay it on its side, it'll slow it down. But you better make sure it's still lit every now and then, or you might be in for a rude awakening, okay? So, when you go to get into a hive, you want to put some smoke in the entrance, a couple puffs, put some in the top, okay? And that might be all you ever need for the whole time you're in here. It just depends on your bees, depends on the day, depends on if there's a robbing situation that's ripe. So normally we're going to break this double box down. Instead of working it from the top, we're going to take the top one off and set it over there and just work the bottom box, and then if we have to go into the top box, we'll do that over there or down on the ground or whatever. So let's put this over here for right now. Nuke, 5 frames, okay? Can be medium, can be deeps, but 5 frames. They make 4-frame nukes and all that, but I don't mess with any of that. When you break them down, give them a little puff. Just something to think about, something to distract them. Some of them start fanning their wings, some of them stick their head in the cell and start sucking up honey. You know, it breaks their communication. Okay, that's how smoke works. All right, and if they can't communicate, they can't get organized, and you might get a sting or whatever every now and then, but they can't get organized and get after you in force. You want to try to prevent getting stung and squishing a bee comes with the territory. Okay, it's gonna happen. All right, no big deal. If you can minimize those two evolutions, you're gonna have a lot gentler hive. Now, I don't expect or even encourage you to not have a suit on. At least have a veil, long sleeve shirt, okay? But I have very gentle bees. I don't tolerate aggressive bees because I don't want to wear a suit. When it's 95 degrees out in the middle of August, you want me to put more clothes on? That just doesn't make sense to me, okay? Besides that, bee stings are good for you as long as you're not allergic to them. And less than 1% of the population is actually allergic to bee venom. Been known to cure arthritis. It's good for gout. There's no drug known to mankind that's more effective for multiple sclerosis than bee venom. And they started researching how to treat cancer with bee venom. And that just came out a couple months ago, okay? They're not doing it in this country because of our pharmaceutical companies and the politicians and all, but they're doing it in Australia and New Zealand. So hopefully that comes about. It could be possibly a cure-all for cancer. So bee venom is good for you. However, bee venom is more potent than rattlesnake venom. So protect yourself. Put a veil on. You don't have to have a full suit. You can if you want, okay? You can have a jacket with the veil. You can have just a veil and long sleeve shirt, gloves. As soon as you can, lose the gloves. This is me speaking. This is how I teach. As soon as you can, lose the gloves. If you have to wear gloves, wear some dishwashing gloves or these nitrile gloves, okay? They can sting through the gloves, but they're not normally going to sting you on your hands. They're going here. This is where instinctively, and they've been doing this for millions of years, this is where they're the most effective when they sting. When you buy a pair of big old heavy gloves like this, it's leather. What is leather? It's animal fiber. Animals are their predators, okay? When they sting these gloves, that alarm pheromone that they release when they sting stays in the gloves. When they sting these, you can wash it off or throw them away and use a new pair, okay? These go way up to your sleeve. I know a guy that got stung because this elastic right here was pushing his suit up tight against his skin, and they were still able to sting through that because it was up against your skin. When you buy a suit, you want it to be at least one size larger than what you normally wear. You want baggy suits. Or if you're using a long sleeve shirt and long pants, you want them to be loose fitting and baggy. No yoga pants. They won't give you any protection, okay? If you feel you have to use this, be thinking in your mind, you are eventually gonna wean yourselves off of these gloves and go to these gloves. And eventually, hopefully, you wean yourselves off of gloves completely, because the way I teach and the way my management philosophy is, if you're gentle, if you're slow and methodical, then you're not going to squish bees. If bees don't feel that you're a threat, if they don't think you're going to hurt them, they have no reason to sting you. They have stingers strictly for defense. They're not like wasp and hornets who use their stingers to hunt and gather food. They actually feed on my honeybees. That makes the honeybee the prey. Wasp and hornets are the predators. Who's more aggressive, predators or prey? These guys are gentle. I would never do what I'm doing with honeybees. I would never do that with wasp and hornets because they are programmed to be aggressive and mean. Otherwise, they wouldn't be very good predators if they weren't more aggressive than the prey that they feed on, okay? So, if you can, it's hard to be sensitive when you got these big old thick monster gloves on. You can actually feel a bee between the frames. When you're putting the frames back together, you can actually feel a bee between the two end bars where the wood is, which is the danger zone, the worst part of the danger zone. You can bump and you can feel them. It feels kind of squishy. and then you can just pull it away. When you bump a bee, she'll move. Just like when you're in a crowded subway or a train station and someone bumps into you, it's like, oh, excuse me, pardon me. Okay, bees are social insects. We are social mammals. They do the same, we do the same things that they do. So when you bump a bee, it's gonna move, okay? Just like when I bump into you, somebody's gonna move, okay? So when you do that with bare hands or very sensitive thin gloves, you're gonna be able to feel that squishy bee. Squishy, not a problem. The worst sound you want to hear when you do a hive inspection is the sound of a crunch. Then it's too late. You've already injured them. They released that alarm pheromone. Now all our sisters are getting upset, and now you got an issue. Minimize that evolution, and you do that best by being sensitive. So, winter time, you're going to see things in the winter different than in the summer. In the summer, she's laying 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day, early spring or early summer and spring. And one day you get into them, and a week later, it's like, holy smokes, they went from 20,000 bees to 30,000 bees, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. All right, so in the winter, they are going to be in the center. They might be in the bottom box, they might be in the top. They're still in the bottom box. That's good. That means they like to move north as they eat their way through their food. And if in the middle of January they're still in the bottom box, that's good. It means they got plenty of food. They're not running out by, if they were all the way up in the top of this box in the middle of January, because we still got a month and a half to go at least, we got a problem. But they're down here where they want. If I'm just trying to go in here and see what I got real quick, because you don't want to spend a whole lot of time because of the temperatures, I'm going to go right to the center. All right, so Hive Tool, break the propolis. That's glue. That's a bee glue. It's kind of a pain in the neck, but that's what they do to seal up all the cracks and crevices in their hive and keep the pathogens and viruses out. Okay, right here in the middle, you've got some capped brood. She'll maintain a smaller cluster in the winter, just enough to replace the natural attrition of the bees that are dying in the winter. You've got capped honey up here in the corners. Okay, see the difference in the two? Capped brood, capped honey. Here's some honey that's not capped. If they don't fill those cells up and the nectar stops flowing before they're full, they're not going to cap those off. So right here is the brood area, which is what I expected at this time of year. Over here, you can take the flat, you can take 3 fingers and touch them gently to get them to move so you can see what you're looking at. Or you can take the flat part of your hive tool and just gently touch them, get them to disperse. Remember how I said they'll move, they'll respond to you bumping them? Here's larva, cap pupa. This looks like a good healthy hive. This is exactly what you want to see at this time of year. This is a frame perch. You can put that on the edge of your hive. Normally I don't like to put brood out here. I like to keep that inside, but today we're going to leave it there just for a minute. All right. All right. You should be able to see one bee that looks different than all the rest. She's got a blue dot on her back. we put that dot on her thorax, on her back, to make it easier to find her. Because trying to find a bug that's just a little bit bigger than all the rest of the bugs can be a daunting task, okay? See that bright blue dot? That was last year's color. We used 5 different colors: red, white, yellow, green, and blue. The way that you remember the order that they're in is you can remember, will you raise good bees? B, bees is blue. Will you raise, R is red. Last year was blue, so if we start over again, what's next? What's this year? Will, W, white. That's the color for 2021, okay? When she stops, they gather around her, they groom her, they feed her, they treat her like the queen she is, okay? So this is a very healthy hive, exactly what you want to see. More brood here. You probably won't, you could get 6 or 8 frames of brood, but more than likely it'll be 2, maybe 3, all right? So, honey again in the corner, uncapped honey here, larva and pupa in the center, and if you look real close, there's even eggs in there. An egg looks like a grain of rice, except about 1/50th the size. So there she goes. Imagine trying to find her if she didn't have a mark on her back. Mark your queens, mark your queens, mark your queens, okay? You want to make sure she's in the center somewhere here, not over here in the danger area when you put this back down in here. I've never squished a queen by accident. Only intentionally when they're at the end of their life. Okay, so that's a quick sneak peek. See the bees? They're not getting after me. As long as you present yourself and handle them in such a way that they don't think you're a threat to them. If they don't think you're going to hurt them, they have no reason to sting you. When they sting you, they die. Wasp and a hornet can sting you over and over again and not die, because their stinger is used differently than the honeybee stinger. Okay? So when you're done, you want to push these frames back together so you don't leave a gap between the end bars. If you do, they will fill that gap with propolis and it will cause a problem. So that's important, and we'll talk more about that later. I needed to see, I know they got food, I know they got brood, I know they got a laying queen, they got enough bees to keep themselves warm. You have to have food or they'll starve to death. You have to also have, you can have all kinds of food, you have to have enough bees where they can keep themselves warm. At 47 degrees they go to cluster and they vibrate their wing muscles, not their wings, their wing muscles. That's the equivalent when you and I shiver and they keep themselves warm. These bees can withstand ambient temperatures outside to 40 below zero, okay? They're very good at keeping themselves warm as long as they've got enough bees and they've got enough food to do that. It creates metabolism and they generate heat. It can be 40 below outside. They keep their brood incubated at 94 degrees, okay? That's incredible, absolutely incredible, all right? So the #1 reason for winter losses in Virginia, well, in general, is starvation. Virginia sees between 40 all the way up to 60% winter losses. And the #1 reason for winter losses is starvation. If your bee's starved, don't blame that on geography. Don't blame that on the weather. That was a management problem. You either took too much of their honey or you didn't prepare them for winter and do what you had to so they can survive the winter. A typical hive needs about 60 to 70 pounds of honey here in our area. Further north it's more, maybe less in some places, but typically 60, 70 pounds will do fine, okay? So you need to make sure they're in that condition and they're in that shape and they're ready for winter before winter hits. Because here we get a lot of warm days in the winter, but some places it goes cold and it never gets warm again. So remember that sensitivity thing I was talking about? You go to put this box back down, kitty corner. Hover, bump. Get the smoke out of your face. Kitty corner, hover, bump the bees, they'll move, and bring it to the right attitude. And then use your fingers to line it back up. You have less chance of squishing bees when you go down like this because they're only touching here, 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 and here, there. If you set it down this way, you got a chance of squishing bees all the way along here, okay? So go down kitty corner, hover a little bit, bump your bees a little bit, get them to move, and then bring it around, straighten it up. You're not hurting them. You don't hurt your bees, they won't hurt you. That was kind of a quick hive inspection. You need an objective when you go into your hive. You might do a full-blown hive inspection. It takes a long time. You don't have to find your queen every time you get in there. Personally, I like to find the queen. It gives me a warm fuzzy. But you don't have to find your queen every time. If you find evidence that she's in there in the form of eggs and young larvae, then hey, meet your objective, get out of there, all right? Every time you get into a hive, you are slowing down production, okay? So Ann Harmon, the late Ann Harmon, came down here from Northern Virginia and gave us a lecture one time, and it was stress-free hive management. And she said at the end, now for you new beekeepers that want to play, and you really should have more than one hive. You should have a minimum of 2. You don't have to have more than that, but if you've got 2 hives, you have more management opportunity. You can rob from Peter to pay Paul, and you just are a lot better off. Now naturally you got to start with 1 hive, unless you start with 2 hives, and you might have 10 or 20 or 100. Doesn't matter. If you got 1 hive or 100 hives, you're going to have to do a hive inspection. But to have 2 hives, something happens here, you can always rob from Peter or borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Okay, so this was the 10 frame setup that we just did, and that was kind of a typical down and dirty. There's a lot more to it, but you need to have an objective, and you need to know, why am I getting in here? Am I checking on their food? You might not even have to get in there to do that. You might just be able to lift the back of the hive and see how heavy it is. You can use a thermal imaging camera, especially in the winter. See where your cluster is without even opening the hive. That's a great device. You can buy an app for your cell phone. You can buy a $3,000 thermal imaging camera if you want. I'll keep you in endeavor. So, 10 frame, 8 frame, nuke. I tell people, and you can, this is 8 frames. It's 2 frames less than the 10 frame. It's lighter. You need to decide, okay? If we were in a classroom, I bring a truckload of equipment and woodenware, and you can go back to the table during the break and lift it and ask questions. What's this for? What, you know? And you don't have that luxury right now, okay? So you're going to have to go to someone else's yard, figure out what you need in some other way. You don't have that luxury that we normally have being in a classroom. But you can produce just as many cells, just as many square inches of brood or honeycomb or brood comb or whatever in an 8 frame as you do a 10 frame. You just have to stack them higher, okay? The bees don't care. They're used to moving north and south because they've been living in a hollow tree, which is a vertical cavity. We didn't start producing horizontal cavities until we started building structures. But you can do it either way, all right? If I had it to do all over again, I would probably go all 8 frame and all medium. 3 medium boxes equals a double deep. This is where you got the slatted rack here, so it's kind of distorts it a little bit, but 3 mediums is equal to a double deep. I think that for a new beekeeper, they should have about a double deep space for their brood chamber, and then honey supers above that, okay? So you can do that with an 8 frame. Mediums are lighter. They're also interchangeable, okay? In my yard, I have deeps and mediums because we have a nuke program, and some people have deep equipment, some people have medium, so I got to be able to produce both sizes of frames with bees and laying queen and brood and all that. So that's on purpose, okay? But you don't have to do that. This is one of the most fascinating critters on the face of the earth, honeybees, okay? Once you get up close and personal, there's no turning back. You will enjoy this, and of course, the more you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. So there is a certain degree of commitment that's required, but the main thing you need, the main personality trait you need, is passion. Okay? People who are passionate are better beekeepers. Okay? And this is something that you want to tell all your friends and neighbors and family about once you get into it. So I'm glad that you've signed up for this course. It's something that you'll never stop learning. It's a continuing education type project. You never plateau as long as you keep your passion. Thank you very much.